when leadership quotes become coaching cover. There is a difference between using a thinker and using them up. Coaching culture, particularly in leadership programs, often borrows respected names to lend gravity to what is otherwise a belief system. The result is not citation. It is interpretation, selective, directional, and always in service of the framework being sold. A recent post from the coaching room offers a good example. It invokes Max DePree, speaks of defining reality, and positions integral leadership as the natural heir to his thinking. On the surface, it sounds responsible. Under scrutiny, it is something else. DePree, context removed. DePree did believe leaders had a responsibility to define reality. What is often left out is what he meant by that, and what he warned it entailed. For DePree, defining reality was about naming constraints, financial truths, organizational limits, and human costs so people were not misled. It happened inside real organizations, with boards, employees, families, and consequences. He also made something explicit that coaching culture rarely quotes. Leadership, he said, is a serious meddling in other people's lives. That line matters because it places a brake on certainty. It frames leadership as ethically dangerous, not spiritually clarifying. When DePree is quoted in coaching contexts, the meddling remains, but the warning disappears. Interpretation replaces responsibility. In the coaching version, defining reality quietly shifts from external conditions to internal interpretation. Reality becomes something a leader perceives through a framework rather than something negotiated, tested, and constrained. Integral leadership deepens this shift. Drawing on Ken Wilber, reality is filtered through quadrants, stages, and developmental narratives. These are not neutral observations. They are philosophical maps, treated as if they confer a wider, truer view. Once that move is made, disagreement stops being disagreement. It becomes underdevelopment. Harm stops being harm. It becomes growth discomfort. Certainty is no longer arrogance. It is clarity. This is not DePree's leadership ethic. It is interpretive authority. Maslow reoriented, not respected. The same pattern appears with Abraham Maslow. His work was tentative, descriptive, and never intended as a moral ladder. Coaching reframes it as a directional mandate. Up is better. Stability is stagnation. Maintenance is fear. Once Maslow is repurposed this way, long-term commitments, including relationships, can be reframed as limitations rather than responsibilities. Again, this is not scholarship. It is narrative engineering. NLP as the engine. Underneath it all sits neurolinguistic programming. Not as a tool, but as an epistemology. If something feels aligned, expansive, or congruent, it is treated as true enough. Speed is valued over deliberation. Reframing outranks repair. When neurolinguistic programming becomes the operating logic, internal states are elevated to the status of evidence. Looking at our internal states without distortion sounds rigorous until you realize there is no external check on what counts as distortion. The framework validates itself. Why this matters? This is where the truth in coaching critique lives. DePree is not being misquoted accidentally. He is being interpreted usefully. His moral authority is transferred to a system that does not carry his restraint. Wilber supplies spiritual hierarchy. Maslow supplies direction. NLP supplies certainty and speed. Together, they form a closed loop where leaders feel authorized to redefine reality while remaining insulated from the consequences of doing so. Leadership becomes something you see, not something you are accountable for. That is not neutral development. It is belief formation, dressed in executive language. If leadership is, as DePree said, a serious meddling in other people's lives, then frameworks that increase certainty without increasing accountability should worry us, especially when they are sold as service, gratitude, and growth. Truth in coaching is not about rejecting leadership. It is about asking a harder question. Who carries the cost when defining reality goes wrong?